The script for this morning's trending in the AM might be slightly switching a little bit. I was going to talk about how and what the Eagles can do maybe to change the narrative of this season, of this playoff run that we're about to embark on. But we're going to talk coaching and coaches and firing coaches and hiring coaches instead. We're going to get started with that. And dare me to talk the Sixers. Dare me. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow, subscribe, turn those notifications on. Do it all. Hit all those buttons wherever you're watching. And most importantly, get involved in the conversation. This show thrives on the conversation and the interaction with you guys, the fans of this show. So make sure you drop your comments, drop your thoughts on the Eagles, on the NFL, on the coaching changes, on so much that's happening in the world of sports. And, as the thumbnail shows on the show, dare me to talk Sixers. When I came up with that, I thought the Sixers were going to win last night. Instead, they decided to lose last night. So I don't know if I want to talk about them, but you could talk Sixers in the comments as well if you are interested in it. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, every morning here on Trending in the AM. Shoot me a follow at Bearded Knowledge. I'd greatly appreciate that. Good morning, Peanut. How you doing this morning? Hope you're well. We got TMC in the house. Good value always when you watch Trending in the AM. Carolina Panthers have requested an interview Brian Johnson. We are going to get into that today. I thought that was going to be the first thing that I had to talk about today, that Brian Johnson had his first request for an interview, and it was with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, the Carolina Panthers have requested, like I was just looking, there's a site that tracks what teams have requested interviews with who, and the Carolina Panthers have requested like 12 different interviews. So take that with a grain of salt, but I wanted to get into that. But breaking news about 20 minutes ago, Bill Belichick is no longer the head coach of the New England Patriots. Yesterday afternoon, Pete Carroll out as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Nick Saban out as head coach and greatest of all time at the Alabama Crimson Tide in college football. There's a lot of coaching, juggling, moving parts happening in the world of football, not just NFL, but college, obviously, as well, with Nick Saban. And you still got the John Harbaugh, will he stay or will he go, hanging there. Happy Benny On Day. What's up, my man, K1? How you doing? Let's go. I'll take a Benny Hahn win this week. What did I get Benny Hahn bet at for the Sony Open? I bet Benny no, he was my first cutoff of my thing. I did not bet Benny On. Damn it. He's in some DraftKings lineup, so we'll check them after the show. But coaching. There's a couple different things I want to talk about with coaching today. Obviously, these head coaches that are gone. What's up, TMC? How you doing? I'm giving you value, but you're a little late to the party. So, coaching candidates, coaching jobs out there, and something that I thought about more. I thought about it briefly yesterday afternoon, and I thought about it more with Bill Belichick getting the axe. He didn't get the axe. They mutually agreed to part ways. Pete Carroll didn't get fired. He decided to take a move to the front office. Basically, he's fired till he gets another job. Nick Saban retiring. Is he really retiring? We spent a lot of time this week, and a lot of Eagles, excuse me, social media has spent a lot of time talking about whether Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat or not. Tim McManus reporting yesterday that he is on the hot seat this week. with the results of this game in Tampa. That whether we should move on from him or not, would Jeffrey Lurie consider it or not? Would anybody consider working under Howie Roseman? And it got me thinking after Belichick got the official axe today, this morning, whenever it happened. Is Jeffrey would is have Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman to an extent just been waiting to make a decision on Nick Sirianni to see if any of these big names became available? Like Jeffrey Lurie is Jeffrey Lurie sitting in his office 2 or 3 days ago saying, "Man, Nick Sirianni might not be the right guy, but I'm not moving on to another, young up and comer with this team. If Bill Belichick or something like that becomes available, sure." And I'm not here saying I want Bill Belichick. Let me say that clear as day. I am not asking for Bill Belichick in Philly. But we know Jeffrey Lurie likes to swing for the fences. That's what he did with Chip Kelly. Swings for the fences. Is Jeffrey Lurie, was he just patiently waiting to really make up his mind on the future of this organization till A, the season was over, but B, until a big bold option became available? Is that something that's the case? Would you even want any of those guys? Everyone's saying Nick Saban's retiring because he's old and he wouldn't start all over again. Maybe he wouldn't start all over again in college. Maybe that's the big swing that Jeffrey Lurie would make. I'm not saying I like that idea either. Pete Carroll. We talked about it a little bit. How long's too long in an organization? He had one Super Bowl in Seattle. Is that a guy you'd want here? Like, I'm not going out there and making changes just to make changes. This is what Jeffrey Lurie's thinking. But if somebody becomes available like that, would I make that move? Panthers or Washington for who? Bill Belichick would hell no way go to the Carolina Panthers. Washington, the only way I could see Bill Belichick going to Washington would be if Josh Harris just massively overpaid. If Bill Belichick, what's he, 72, 73 years old? If Bill Belichick coaches in 2024, it will be somewhere that already has an established or at the very least strong quarterback person already in place. He is not going somewhere where he's got to start from the ground up, Bill Belichick. That's why the Eagles fit. I mean, the Chargers fit. I already saw reports of Atlanta. Atlanta does not fit. Seattle, if you're going to roll with Geno Smith, at least he's an established quarterback, not an elite quarterback, an established one. That's where he would go. Bill Belichick ain't going anywhere that he's got to rebuild. If he was going to rebuild, he would have just stayed in New England. Belichick and Kraft had creative differences. Yeah, I love some of the things that teams say when they fire their coaches. Creative differences. We're going to move in a different direction. We talk about cliches with the Eagles and the coaches, but man, owners when they fire their coaches, we really appreciate what Arthur Smith did in developing a great culture here in Atlanta. But we're going to move on. That was the one used when he got fired. When what's his name got fired in Atlanta by Arthur Blank. Sirianni being fired will make it almost impossible to find a head coach that would trust this front office. I agree, and we've talked about that multiple times this week, Peanut. That no big name would want to work under Howie Roseman's thumb. And to a second extent, I don't know about firing coaches after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. 3 with Chip, 5 with Doug, 3 would be with Sirianni. That happens in the NFL all the time. Very, very few coaches have the longevity in one organization like Carroll, like Tomlin, like Belichick. It's just not the way of the NFL anymore. Coaches get rotated in and out pretty frequently. So it's more the Howie Roseman aspect of it. What's up, K1? So Lurie isn't firing Sirianni, and I agree. For one thing, it would be admitting a mistake, and billionaires hate doing that. No. Admitting the mistake would be firing after year 1, after year 2, but after year 3, when you have the goal of making the Super Bowl every year, when you see the 1-5 last 6 weeks, It would be moving on from a mistake, not admitting a mistake. But I agree, he's not going to fire Nick Sirianni. I know McManus is on ESPN changing the narrative and saying that Sirianni is on the hot seat this week against Tampa. Um, I don't know. It doesn't matter because I don't think it's going to happen. I would think maybe, just maybe, there's a 20% chance K1 say we go into Tampa on Monday and get blown out and we play worse than we played against the Giants. Maybe, because billionaires hate admitting mistakes, but billionaires hate being embarrassed more than anything. You know, when they're in their billionaires club hanging out and they're all sitting around sipping whatever they're sipping, that all they really care about is not being what happened to your team at the end of the year? Disaster. What are you gonna do about that? My team didn't have that big of a disaster. Robert Kraft will go to Lori and be like, "Yo, yeah, I had to fire Bill Belichick, but man, I didn't go 1-5 and lose a 10-1 season." Like the embarrassment is bigger than the mistake, in my opinion. Belichick versus the Philly media would be awesome. It would be funny. Bill would answer every question with a grunt and a shoulder shrug. Yeah, I mean, we need more Mista. We need more John Tortorellos in the coaching to go at it with the media in Philly. I don't know if you guys saw it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on with the Cutter trade and Kevin Hayes, and there was a media member from Crossing Broad that made some comments about Hayes, you know, whatnot. And Tortorello just stood up at the podium yesterday and said, "Yo, which one of you said that stuff about Keith Hayes?" And then when the reporter stood up and said it was me, he just tore into him. We need more of that. That is what we need more of. Tepper, richest owner, 20 bills. After 5 years, 200 million to right ship is dropping. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Bills owners. Tom Brady won the Cold War against Belichick, but lost the war. Did he? Did he? I don't know. Brady lost his butt with FTX, maybe. Did he not make enough money on his? Yeah, I was thinking about Tom Brady for a second yesterday. Would Tom Brady entertain head coaching? I don't know. For some reason, I feel that Tom Brady going into the broadcast booth is weird to me. I feel like Tom Brady would be a good short-term answer for some team at head coach. I don't know why, but I just feel that. Yo, what's up, NFL Reality Check? How you doing this morning, my man? I hope you're well. But anyway, to these coaches, I mean, it's just crazy that you have Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick all unemployed within what was it, like a 16-hour window since all three pieces of news broke. But yeah, people think it's just out of the realm of possibility that Nick Sirianni definitely 100% wouldn't get moved on from. I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy. It's a crazy world. Will Nick Saban coach again? I mean, will Nick Saban dip his toes into NFL waters again? I doubt it, but it would be interesting. It would be a narrative. It'd be great for the script writers. It would be. Tom Brady has been at Raiders practice. Yeah, he was there a few times. He's part owner of the Raiders now too, isn't he? So maybe he couldn't be a coach for that reason, but whatever. Tom Brady being involved with a football team seems much better than him in the broadcast booth, in my opinion. What's up, Little Griffin? A great team, go Eagles. We all hope they kick the Buccaneers' butt, but we talk realistically here that the odds are not in their favors to make a deep run in this playoffs. Owner gonna give 10% ownership at lower price if he hangs out. What? Tom Brady? Tom Brady's already part owner of them. Again, David Tepper is Panthers owner. He's the richest. Okay, again, I don't care about the owners of other teams. I know I'm not hearing you guys talking about Bill coming here. No, 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 no. Didn't say that. Did not say that. I said, is Jeffrey Lurie waiting to make his final decision on Nick Sirianni till he sees all the available candidates? And Jeffrey Lurie has always loved the Patriots' way of doing business. That just might be his thought process. And Bill has been bad for the last 4 years, and that's because Mac Jones. The Mac Jones pick set that franchise back a decade. Okay. He will go somewhere if he wants to coach, and that's the reports is that he wants to continue coaching. He will only go to a team if they have an established quarterback, either a franchise guy or a veteran placeholder. Like I looked at Seattle. I could see Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick just flipping spots. But Geno Smith is an established guy, not a franchise guy, but an established guy. He'll only go somewhere if there is a quarterback there already. Prepare for the return of Palpatine. Yeah, is that what it's going to be like? Look, it's not happening. Don't want it to happen. And look, let's just think about this. There's 8 coaching openings now in the NFL. Chargers, Raiders, Washington, New England and Seattle now, the Titans still, Falcons, and Carolina. That's 8 openings. Did I miss any? Hold on. Chargers, Raiders, Washington, New England, Seattle, Tennessee, Atlanta, Carolina. I feel like I'm missing somebody on that list. But anyway, 8 job openings right now in the NFL. And you've just thrown Carroll, Saban, and Belichick's name along with Harbaugh and Vrabel. There's 5 established names along with 30 great up-and-coming assistants. These teams that got head coaching openings really need to do their due diligence because there's a lot of opportunities. There's going to be a lot of really good candidates that don't get head coaching jobs this offseason, which brings me to the Brian Johnson part of the equation. Yeah. Oh, good. If Bill comes here, we will be worse than we are now. Yeah, probably. Bill Belichick. I've said it already on this show. Bill Belichick's time has passed him by. After 25 years of playing football in the NFL, there's no way he coaches in a cold weather city. Miami, Vegas, or LA is the only way he considers it. You're talking about Tom Brady? Yeah, probably. But Brian Johnson's name hit the news wire yesterday, late in the morning after the show, because it was reported that Carolina requested permission to interview him for their head coaching opening. And I'm sure more teams will request Brian Johnson as their head coaching candidate for interviews. I'm sure of it, especially once the season ends, maybe Monday night. But we're so down on Brian Johnson. We're so ready to move on from Brian Johnson. We cannot stand his in-game play calling. Yet, Brian Johnson is still going to be one of the top coaching candidates for head coaching positions in this cycle of head coaching searches. So, I mean, I like to think we're just fans. We know football, but whatever. But the NFL knows more than we do. Like, maybe the NFL sees past what Brian Johnson's struggles or this Eagles offensive struggles have been. And they see the truth of what the matter is, how influential he was in the development of Jalen Hurts. So the question is, are we too harsh on Brian Johnson? And that doesn't even solve the question that if we lost Brian Johnson, that would be 2 years in a row of completely overhauling our coordinator positions on both sides of the football. That's not good. And it kind of goes back to yesterday's poll question of, would Nick Sirianni get a head coaching job immediately if he was fired? Bill Belichick, if he wants a job, he'll get a job immediately. Pete Carroll, same way. Nick Saban, same way. Vrabel, the same way. Would Nick Sirianni? Because the fact that Brian Johnson still is a heavy consideration for multiple jobs as a head coach after this season say more about Brian Johnson being better than we give him credit for, or is it more of an onus on that Nick Sirianni isn't doing a good enough job as the head coach? Does this thread I'm trying to put together work for you guys? Because I'm trying to put it into words, what I'm feeling here. I'm not sure if it's coming out correctly. I want to interview Brian Johnson too. For what? Washington football, what are you thinking? I don't know. No, sorry, question. what the F are you thinking? But is it him? Or is it Nick Sirianni that we should be questioning more? That's what I'm saying. What's up, Dave? How you doing this morning? Maybe Brian Johnson might be more suited as a head coach instead of an offensive coordinator. Smart dude that gets along well with everybody. Played quarterback, has a lot of experience. Yeah, maybe he's just better off being the OC or the head coach. Maybe he's better off not calling plays. Or maybe he needs to call the plays as I flick my pen in my face. Jeez. Um, maybe he has to call the plays of an offense that he designs, not that Nick Sirianni designed. I mean, you look at the two coordinators that left last year, Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen. Both different in success. Obviously, the Colts didn't make the playoffs, but were a solid team. You know, the Cardinals were terrible, but beat the Cowboys and the Eagles. Both of them are running different styles of offenses and defenses than they ran here in Philly because they were running what they were told to run, basically. Long story short. So maybe Brian Johnson wants to get out of Philly after this season, honestly. Because maybe it's not all on Brian Johnson. Any team where Bill Belichick would not go to a team that has no quarterback situation, situated, Brian Johnson is the perfect candidate to go to a team like Carolina, who has a young quarterback in Bryce Young. Go to the Falcons, who might draft a young quarterback, or Titans, or go to, say, Washington or New England, who have to start over and draft somebody and develop. That's a perfect spot for Brian Johnson. He's already proven he can take Jalen Hurts and turn him into an MVP candidate. I like him as a guy, but not what he does for our offense from what I've seen. And that goes into it further, that it's not his offense. It's Nick Sirianni's offense that he's running. So you might see a different Brian Johnson in another city. If he gets a head coaching job in Carolina, he takes a few Eagles coaches with him. Hopefully he steals Desai. Well, it doesn't matter. Desai, Patricia, they're both gone. There's literally zero doubt within 24 hours of the season ending, those two guys are gone. But yes, some of the other assistants would definitely go with him. The problem with success is you lose a lot of your coaches. But the Eagles losing their offense and defensive coordinator for good and bad reasons last year and this year. Plus all they lost their linebacker coach in Rawlins. They lost Denard Wilson to Baltimore. All the coordinators they lose too, or the assistants to the coordinators, is just as big of a deal. This team needs to have, some form of stability in its coaching ranks. But it's just not going to happen. And I don't know what the Eagles will do after this season with they're going to have a lot of openings on their coaching staff, whether Nick Sirianni's here or not. Even if he stays, there's going to be a lot of jobs that need to be filled. Which leaves me open for another conversation that I want to have this morning too, but we'll save it. Since when does failing an offensive coordinator qualify you to be the head coach? And it's a fair question. And that was my initial reaction to hearing that Brian Johnson was getting an interview with Carolina. I just figured we'd be stuck with Brian Johnson another year because with the struggles in the last 6 weeks, no one would want him. But then I stopped for a second, K1. And I thought about it for a minute. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Brian Johnson's getting an interview request already. Even after everything that's happened over the last 6 weeks. It leads me to believe that teams see through the struggles, that it's not all on Brian Johnson. That it's the team as a whole. It's the systems put in place by Nick Sirianni. It's Howie Roseman. There's a lot of other things. People see the success that some of these other coordinators have had leaving here and gotten better. That maybe, just maybe, he's better than we're giving him credit for. We're putting too much of the blame on Brian Johnson, not enough on Nick Sirianni. That's just where I'm thinking right now, or how I'm thinking right now. He's only being looked at because he helped develop Hurts over the first 4 years in the NFL. and also how he helped Trask in Florida. People forget about Kyle Trask and what Kyle Trask. He's not a good NFL player. He might be on a roster. I know he's on a training camp roster. I don't know if he's still in any rosters right now, Kyle Trask, but he had a great development in Florida. Trask from before to after Brian Johnson. He's good with quarterbacks, so he could be considered, and that's why he'll be considered by more than Carolina because a lot of these teams, New England's probably starting over from Mac Jones. Washington is not committed to Sam Howell anymore. Raiders, it's either Aiden O'Connell or draft somebody. Titans, they got two young guys in Will Levis and Malik Willis. Falcons, do they stick with Riddler or they draft somebody? There's a lot of teams. Only for real the Chargers have a quarterback with an open job position. Seattle, I guess, with Geno, but they'll probably roll with Geno again next year and draft the guy and kind of roll with that. Brian Johnson is going to be looked at because he develops quarterbacks. And there's no denying that. And I mean, that's the core of every bad franchise is that they don't have a quarterback. So they need to draft a quarterback and they need to develop a quarterback. And they need to give that quarterback time to develop. It's a very good reason to consider Brian Johnson as a head coach. The Panthers are trying to see if he can help Young the way he helped Hurts. And he's either going to fall flat on his face doing it because Bryce Young's just not Jalen Hurts, or he'll be back to an assistant coordinator position in 2 or 3 years. We'll find out. And he's not the only one. I mean, Ben Johnson, there'll be a lot of guys. Carolina's already requested the rights to interview like 10 different guys for their job. So did Johnson fail or fall or fail? I can't see. I think it says fail, or did Nick fail Johnson? And I think part of the whole Brian Johnson getting an interview request leads me to think that teams think outside of Philly that Nick Sirianni has more of the blame than Brian Johnson at this point. What's up, Mitchie Pooh? Michigan have beaten Nick Saban to retirement. Look, I don't know what's going to go on with Nick Saban. Everyone says he's going to retire, but no one's saying Carroll or Belichick are going to retire, and they're all about the same age. So I don't know if Nick Saban's done. Nick Saban maybe takes a year off. Maybe Nick Saban goes the Jay Wright route and just retires, calls it, does media appearances, maybe some motivational speeches. Who knows what's on his agenda? But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Nick Saban dips his toe into coaching one more time. I don't think it'd be out of the realm of possibilities that a team like Washington, with boatloads of money, don't just go to Nick Saban and go. I need you to build a culture here. I need you to build this franchise back up. And I don't know if he would do it or not, but money talks. I saw something that Nick Saban only made $120 million in his 17 years at Alabama. And I was just shocked at how little. That's less than $1 million, or less. It's not less than $10 million a year for the greatest coach of all time. It's insane. I saw that number. I was like shocked, but I wouldn't be shocked. What changed between last year and this year? Not the GM, not the head coach, not the personnel, except right guard and running back, which weren't an issue. Process of elimination. It's a very interesting way to look at it. Very interesting way to look at it, K1. The thing that changed was the offense and defensive coordinator. I get it. But losing the offensive coordinator and Shane Steichen to Nick Sirianni take too much control from Brian Johnson. Like, should Nick Sirianni have just given the full reins to Brian Johnson like he had Shane Steichen? I don't know. But it definitely seems that Nick Sirianni has way more influence on this offense this year than he did last year. Just saying. And, the running backs actually got better. Right guard, about the same. Defense got worse, by the way. Hit that like button. That's right, Mitch. We're 30 minutes in. Not sure how many likes we have. I'm going to hit the refresh button on my side screen. We got 7 likes only on this show right now. Not good enough. There's 16 people watching on YouTube. Only 7 likes. Not good enough. Only 2 likes on Facebook. Not good enough. Hit that like. Hit that share button for me, guys. Please. Greatly appreciate it. Algorithm's been off the last 2 or 3 days. We're dropping here this week. Brian Johnson likes to call a lot of deep pass plays. Bryce Young has a bigger arm than Hurts. Maybe he's a better fit with Johnson. I don't know if Brian Johnson likes calling all those deep pass plays, or if that's what he's being told. This is turning into a stick up for Brian Johnson scenario from me. Why do I always get tricked into sticking up for guys that I don't really truly like? But I'm trying to make you see the other side of the equation. And I end up getting trapped into sticking up for guys that I really don't have any positive to say about. What's up, Nitro? How you doing? How about owners just have to interview as many people as possible? It's not that deep. We are always trying to place blame or looking too deep into things. They don't have to interview as many people as possible. I mean, it's a smart thing to do when you're hiring a top position. Yeah, you want to interview as many as possible for sure. You want to make sure. And I said at the start of the show, I mean, there's 8 head coaching opportunities. You've got 20, 25 coordinators across the NFL that have valid, arguments to make that they deserve a shot. Plus, then you throw Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, Nick Saban, maybe into the equation. You got 4 formerly extremely successful head coaches available and 8 jobs, plus 25 coordinators that have an argument to be made. And that doesn't mean if any other team's fired. Like if Nick Sirianni got fired or Todd Bowles would get fired from Tampa or trying to think of some of the other lesser teams in the playoffs. There could be other people that are fired in the next two week or so. So I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of interviewing. This is one of the deepest coaching pools for the 8 teams that have openings that there have been in a while. And other teams that are on the fence about what to do with their head coach and with their team. Obviously, the Bears came out and said that what's his name is going to stay. They fired a bunch of the coordinators and whatnot, basically pulling what the Eagles will do. Are there teams that are on the fence about their coach that are like, oh, shoot, Belichick's available now. Carroll's available now. Maybe we do move on from our guy. Maybe the player pool that's available, or the coaching pool that's available now changes at the last. And I forgot to mention Jim Harbaugh in all these names. Maybe the pool of candidates now changes some other teams' opinions. Where was it? Let's go back here. Nick, his first year, the 7 games was calling plays, and our offense looked how it does now. But after 7 weeks, when he handed the reins over to Shane, we started winning. So I can't say it's just exactly. And then that last year, when Shane Steichen had the whole year to develop the offense was much different. Hurts has also regressed in his progressions. Maybe Brian Johnson should have stayed where he was. Yeah, maybe he should have just stayed as the quarterback coach. Whoever replaced the quarterback coach of Brian Johnson maybe was just as much to blame. Because Brian Johnson's got a lot to do, not just talk to Jalen Hurts all day long, like the quarterback coach does. How did Hurts regress when all stats are better than last year? The team as a whole. You can't say Hurts didn't regress. This team did. Jalen Hurts is the leader of this team. I'm number 1 Jalen Hurts fan club member. Have been since the day they drafted him. But even I could say that sometimes the stats don't tell the whole story. Jalen Hurts did not have as good of a season this year as he did last year. There's lots of factors. Brian Johnson, drops, fumbles, interceptions, some on him, some not on him. The offensive line not pass blocking well enough. There's lots of reasons why this team regressed. But to say that Jalen Hurts has no blame for the failures of the last 6-7 weeks, it's just not being realistic with yourself. Maybe it's not such a great thing to have our offensive coordinator being quarterback's best friend. Are they best friends or family? There's a difference there. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Maybe you can't tell them what they're doing wrong. Maybe it's not as easy to tell them what they're doing wrong when you're that close and that closely connected. And again, yeah, I disagree with that. And K1 does too. And I realize he's missing open guys. So the open guys thing isn't always on Jalen Hurts. That's what he's being coached to do. He's being coached to go for the home run ball. He's being coached to take 7-step drops and look deep. But as Nick Sirianni said the other day, Jalen Hurts has all the right to change the play at the line. So if it's such a bad play and he doesn't like it, maybe he should. I think there's a complete total failure from Hurts, Sirianni, Brian Johnson, Howie. The whole group is to blame, honestly. Let's be realistic here. There's everyone to blame here, not just one of them. Stats aren't everything. Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes you gotta look past the stats. You gotta look at a little bit of the feel that's involved. His interceptions are up for sure. His fumbles are up. Um, some of the interceptions are on him. Some of them are not. Some of them were miscommunication and whatnot. Mahomes threw 12 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, and Josh Allen always is turning the ball over as well. So what? K1 Pat Mahomes had 17 interceptions last year and won the Super Bowl. Well, maybe it was 17, 12, somewhere in between. I don't know. But you still got you can't take Jalen Hurts completely out of the equation in the blame game here. There's got to be something that's put on him. Excuse me, sorry. You got to put something on him. You got to put blame on Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs not being as good this year. You got to put the blame on Josh Allen from time to time for their struggles at times. There's a lot of people that you got to blame. Talking about head coaches, why hire coaches that are in the brink of retirement? I think that's an interesting question. Belichick, Carroll, Saban, all in their 70s. I said this a few days ago, Jose, that coaching in sports in general, but mainly football, is a young man's game now. The amount of time and energy, and you got to be relatable to these players, that hiring 75-year-old men just might not be the answer anymore. You look at around the NFL right now, you got a mix of veterans and young guys at head coaching positions. The young guys are the trend, I guess is the way to look at it. The young guys are the trendy picks to be the head coaches now. But I don't know if that's necessarily the right way. I'm looking. Let me go. Redo this. Let me go by the teams that are playing this weekend. And see something here. You've got Browns, Texans have a young coach, Dolphins a young coach. Browns, I don't know how old he is, Stefanski. Obviously Andy Reid's a little older. Mike Tomlin's older and been there. Sean McDermott's older-ish. Packers have a young coach. Cowboys an older coach. Rams young coach. Lions young coach. Eagles younger coach. Buccaneers older coach. So there's a pretty big blend of age and experience and youthfulness in the coaching circles right now. But I'm not sure which way is the right way to go. It, you would take a shot on Belichick or Carroll or somebody like that if you feel that you have the talent on your team. You're just missing that final experience push to get them over the hump. It's just like making a big free agent signing because you need to make that one final piece to add to the puzzle to take your team over the hump. So how cares how many K1? 12 is still a lot. Jalen Hurts has a lot of turnovers this year. So I don't know why we're talking about Mahomes' interceptions, but not blaming Hurts for his interceptions. Yeah, I was on Bleacher Report last week. I was in Philadelphia Magazine this week. Trending in the AM. Even though the algorithm and the views have dropped this week for some random reason, Mitchie Poo, my content hasn't been perfect this last week or so. Big things have happened. Big recognition things have happened. So I love that, Mitchie Poo. Thank you very much. I appreciate that kind words. Doesn't matter how good or bad the views are on a given day. The growth is constantly happening, my man. Big things in 2024. I hope. Big things don't happen at the end of 2024. I'm out of here, guys. I'm done. Everyone is looking for the next Sean McVay. Yeah, because he was what, like 38 when he took the Rams to the Super Bowl, Dave? Something like that. Some young, some number that I don't even remember being age wise. And you probably don't either. Um, but yeah, it's a young man's game. The amount of time and energy you put into being a coach. And you got to be able to be relatable. Do you think Bill Belichick relates to a 23-year-old Mac Jones or whatever he was when he got drafted? No, it's tough. You got to be the world's different. You can't just say two-a-day practices, run head on to each other, and you do what the coach says. You're the foot soldiers. The world's different. You got to be able to relate to each person, their personalities. You got to be able to handle social media issues and gambling issues. You got so much on the plate as a head coach. It's a young man's game. And that's just the simple case of it, simple way of it. The veterans need to be more the coordinators, devising the offensive game plan, the defensive game plan. The head coach needs to manage so many different aspects of it. I like head coaches that aren't play callers on either side of the ball. I like my head coach to be the Mike Tomlin type, the leader. What Nick Sirianni was last year, the leader. But that's the way it is. Look, I don't know. I just think with all these coaching openings, with all these names, I think Brian Johnson getting that interview request says plenty about where this Eagles team is. That maybe it's not all doom and gloom. Maybe it's not all Brian Johnson's fault. Maybe it's a combination of a million different things. But Brian Johnson getting that interview tells me that Brian Johnson is still a solid offensive mind. What does it say here? Looks like Doc Rivers was right. There are scheduled losses. Last night's Sixers game was clearly decided by the refs. Mister, I haven't watched a start to finish Sixers game in a few weeks. I've been really zoned in on the Eagles on this show. I've watched some here, some there, but not. And I'm like, you know what? Because I'm tired of talking about this Eagles team right now, I'm like, I'm going to watch it from start to finish. And I'm going to spend time today talking about the Philadelphia 76ers. That's the game I watched last night, mister, from start to finish. First one in a while. And that's the game I watched. The Atlanta Hawks are not a good basketball team. They were missing Clint Capella. I know we were missing Joel Embiid. But, man, that foul call on Tyrese Maxey at the end of the game in overtime that fouled him out, and everybody's blaming the refs. Well, that's the Sixers' fault because they shouldn't have been in that position anyway. They should have won that game by 20 easily. They had already beaten the Hawks twice. They should have won that game. Doc Rivers out there yesterday talking trash on somebody's podcast or show about Daryl Morey. I'm just so over Doc Rivers. But the thing at least about the Sixers is Nick Nurse, isn't going to find it acceptable. You've got Nick Nurse and John Tortorella, head coach of the Sixers and the Flyers, with passion, accountability, speaking their mind. Then you got Nick Sirianni with the Eagles, the complete opposite. No accountability with his players. Completely different shift and personalities in Philadelphia. Then you got Rob Thompson's everybody's best friend, the dad coach. It's like Rob Thompson is just one of the players' dads that's the coach of the team, like in Little League. There's such a different eclectic group of managers in the Philadelphia city right now. All it says is that Carolina is a dumb organization. I disagree with you, K1. I think it says more. I mean, I could be wrong. And what I think about the Brian Johnson situation has nothing to do with, it doesn't mean he's going to make a great head coach. It just points to the fact that he's still well regarded around the NFL. And I guarantee Carolina will not be the only team that requests an interview with him. The Raiders could, the Falcons, Seattle, New England. You want to develop Mac Jones? You don't want to move on? Well, Brian Johnson's your guy. Just saying. He will get more than one coaching interview opportunity. Oh, the Chargers. They probably need an experienced guy, but they're looking to take Justin Herbert to the next level. There's an opportunity there. I knew that Sixers were going to lose when Jaden Springer didn't start the second half. I think watching the Sixers game last night, Mitchie Poo, proves a few things to me. One, that Paul Reed is not the answer. I've not been a huge Paul Reed guy since day one. I was not a Charles Bassey guy. I was not a fan of a lot of the young players that everybody kept hyping that Doc Rivers was holding back. Paul Reed is an excellent backup to Joel Embiid when Joel Embiid plays. Paul Reed is terrible the games Joel Embiid does not play. We've got a serious issue at that backup center position for when Joel Embiid does not play. Unfortunately, we're stuck playing Marcus Morris at the backup center late in games. I forget what I counted. I think between Mo Bamba and Paul Reed, their minutes combined, there were still 12 or 13 minutes last night where neither of those two were on the floor. And they're played by Marcus Morris. I'm fine. I mean, Marcus Morris is a nice guy. Took far too many shots last night, by the way. I know somebody had to get shots up and somebody had to score and do something last night. And Marcus Morris just happened to be one of those guys. I think he took the third most shots on the team last night. Yeah, third most shots on the team last night by Oh no, fourth. Kelly Oubre had third. He took 8 3-point shots last night. Marcus Morris, second most 3-point shots on the team. That's a problem. I wouldn't be against starting Mo Bamba in place of Paul Reed in those games, but Mo Bamba has his liabilities and limitations as well. The Sixers need to figure out the third string center who's going to be the guy that starts. And what's Joel Embiid missed 9 games? He's missed 3 or 4 in a row. It's a problem with the Sixers right now. For sure is that position. And this team, when Joel Embiid plays this year versus other years, even more, I think they're now 3-6 or 2-7. I think they're 2-7 in the 9 games Joel Embiid has missed. It's an even bigger disparity than ever before. They got to find a way to get Joel Embiid healthy, and they got to find a way to keep Joel Embiid on the floor. They do. Because it's Tyrese Maxey is a great player. He's becoming an all-star. Tobias Harris has had a better last week or so of games, but we're losing games now. So the work is not done at the Wells Fargo Center with the Sixers team. You know what? If somehow Brian Johnson wins a playoff game and somehow gets a divisional playoff game, he will be a head coach on another team. Book it. I think he'll be a head coach on another team eventually, no matter what happens on Monday Night, Davon. Maybe not this year. Maybe he doesn't get that Carolina job this year if they lose in Tampa. But he'll be a head coach. Because most likely, if we lose, even if he doesn't get a head coaching job, Davon, he is going to get fired. They're going to bring a new offensive coordinator in here next year, no matter what, which means 3 years, 3 different coordinators. Not good on the development of your quarterback or your team, but that's the way it is. And then he's going to have an opportunity to go somewhere else and prove whether I'm right or wrong in that he's not all the blame for the offensive struggles, like some people would like to say. So it'd be really interesting to see where Brian Johnson's career goes after Monday night, whether it's as a head coach, a coordinator somewhere else, back to quarterback coach, whatever it may be. If he gets fired and doesn't get a head coaching job, maybe whoever gets hired in Carolina hires him to be the quarterback coach in Carolina. And then if he develops that quarterback, Bryce Young, maybe then he gets that head coaching job. Quirky dresses. He just doesn't play lately. But the one thing I will say about the Sixers and Cork Maz and Daniel House, everybody's ready to go whenever their number's called. Everybody on that bench is fully engaged in every minute of every game. Versus when Doc Rivers was there, guys are off at the back of the bench doing whatever. There's a lot less, the Doc Rivers bad, practices have completely been washed, from this team pretty quickly. I think Embiid is sitting so other players could show what they got right before the deadline. Maybe not. I definitely want to get into in the next couple weeks, about the trade deadline and what the Sixers really need. And I know there's a lot of rumors right now this week about Dejounte Murray from the Hawks. Obviously, the Zach LaVine rumors will always be there until they're not. I heard something interesting, Mister, from Sean Bernard, who's been on the show plenty of times. Works for countless different sites, one of the best out there. And he was talking about why did the Sixers lose last year outside Doc Rivers? Because they couldn't score enough. And I was thinking, about this player, that player, needing a long, wing guy like an OG Anunoby before he got traded. Guys that should be traded for. Like, you know what? The Sixers team does need another offensive scorer. They do need another guy that can go get 18 points a game regularly with a drop of hat, and then on an off day for somebody else, drop 30. So maybe Sean Bernard made a case yesterday on social media. I think it was from his Pick Swap Media podcast or maybe it was on Fox the Gambler, who he's their Sixers insider for, with Sean Brace, that whatever he said, all of a sudden, like that, I'm like, I think the Sixers need Zach LaVine if they can get him cheap enough. Your thoughts. First move Eagles do in the offseason. The first move they do, Jose, is they fire their entire offense and defensive coaching staff. And not the entirety of it, but a lot of it. Their coordinators gone. That's the first move. And then Jeffrey Lurie needs to sit down with Nick Sirianni and say, what's your game plan to be better next year? If he doesn't like the answer, fire Nick Sirianni. But the coordinators are gone. 24 hours after the season ends, the Eagles will not have Matt Patricia, Sean Desai, or Brian Johnson on this team anymore, in my opinion. That is the first move, Jose, in my opinion. With Philly Halftime, what's up, my man, on Twitter? We got a Twitter comment. See, Twitter comments work, guys. If you're watching on Twitter, drop a comment on top of liking and retweeting the show. With Brian Johnson, he's going to be interviewed with a lot of teams. The NFL has had. So some people are saying that he's only getting the interview because of the Rooney Rule. I think Brian Johnson is above that. Now, I'm not trying to make this about race or anything like that. Deuce Staley, some of his interviews were probably over the last few years because of the Rooney Rule. But I think Brian Johnson actually has earned the right to be interviewed, not because of the NFL rule. That's just my opinion. Just going to say. I watched some Flyers. Hey, the Flyers are a good team this year. They've struggled lately, but they're playing much better under John Tortorella this year. Give us your report. Yeah, exactly. I think Brian Johnson is the perfect candidate for Carolina job. Can't think of a better fit. I agree. The only problem with that is that new owner that I keep forgetting the name of, that TMC will always remind me of how he's the richest owner in sports and blah, blah, blah. Is that Brian Johnson or whoever goes to Carolina needs time, mister. Carolina is stripped down. They don't have a first-round pick this year. They got a young quarterback that might not be very good, that needs to develop. They don't have a lot. They waste a lot of money on Miles Sanders. They have no talent on that team. So it's a complete rebuild going on in Carolina. It starts with developing your quarterback. And you're not going to develop Bryce Young in 2 minutes. You know, Jalen Hurts got developed in 2022 so quickly, and 2021, because he had Devontae Smith, he had Dallas Goedert, he had Miles Sanders rushing for 1,300 yards. He got added in 2022. They added A.J. Brown to the roster. You know, they had the best offensive line supposedly in football. Carolina doesn't have any of that. So will the owner of Carolina give Brian Johnson or whoever he hires 3 years to really see if Bryce Young is the guy? To really give him a time to sink his teeth into that organization and develop a culture and bring in talent and develop talent. Like, it's going to Carolina right now without a first-round pick and being stuck with Bryce Young. It's an uphill climb. And I bet you some people turn that. I bet you Carolina owners, if they're as rich as they say, you know, look around and be like, I'll give you as much money as you want to be here. And some guys are going to be like, I'd rather not. Why come here and sink my teeth in to be fired 8 games into a season or whatever it was, like Frank Wright was? Like, that's the problem with Carolina, is will the owner give whoever's the coach the time of day to do what he needs to do? That's just my opinion. Well, like 5 minutes at Buffalo, you watch 5 minutes of a catch. Brian Johnson has a chance if he can lead the locker room. We'll see. Adam Thielen's good. I think he's a very underrated wide receiver for sure. Was great in Minnesota opposite Justin Jefferson. Devontae Smith will not be going to the Panthers. Stop that. He will get an extension this offseason. Tepper's his name. He's good at throwing beer. Yeah, exactly. David Tepper. I know. I just like to make fun of the fact that TMC likes to bring his name up all the time for some reason. Like, I care about David Tepper. Like, honestly. But now I'm just totally lost now. I was talking Sixers, back to Brian Johnson, back to Sixers, back to Brian Johnson, and of course, the final piece of the puzzle. Eric is here. Good morning, Eric. How you doing? As once Eric gets here, the show can really begin. That's the thing. Is Terry Pagula second richest owner? I don't know. I don't know who the richest owners are. I don't care. I don't got that kind of money. I'll never have that kind of money. I don't want that. Well, maybe I do want that kind of money. Anybody that says money doesn't buy happiness has never been broke, is all I can say. Yeah, that's right. Salute to the core 12. I wanted to bring up one other coaching thing, and we can continue talking Brian Johnson. We can continue. If anybody who has any Sixers comments after last night's loss, put them in the comments. We will dive into it. Laurie would rather get rid of Sirianni than losing his top-notch players. Yeah, I don't think one has to do with the other. Laurie just doesn't like to be embarrassed, Jose. Laurie doesn't like losing. Laurie doesn't like negative, opinions amongst his billionaire circles. So Jeffrey Laurie to me would fire Sirianni if he just felt embarrassed. He felt that Sirianni just can't get them back to the Super Bowl. Again, 3 years Chip Kelly, not even 3 years. 5 Doug Peterson, 3. We're in year 3 of Nick Sirianni. He only gave Ray Rhodes 3 years. Ray Rhodes won the first Eagles playoff game in over a decade, and he was fired. He only lasted 3 years. Might be too young for some of, or too far back in the memory banks for some of you youngins. But Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Laurie, outside of Andy Reid, was very quick with the trigger with all his other head coaches. He only gave Rich Kotite 1 year. I mean, it wasn't his first year, but it was his first year under Laurie, and it was a terrible. Just think about this: is this the biggest collapse in Eagles history? And I say no. That '94 Eagles team that started 7-2 under Richie Kotite, man, I thought that was going to be a year. I thought we were going to make a run in '94, and then everything fell apart, and we lost 7 games in a row to close the season. The Randall Cunningham era ended basically there. Kotite's coaching regime ended there. They bring in Ray Rhodes, defensive mind. That didn't. Anyway, that's just that. Jeffrey Laurie got little money, $4.4 billion. That's a little bit of money. I don't know about that. Or Scottie Pippen, the Swiss Army knife of the comments. Yeah, exactly. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said. The Swiss Army knife. I mean, even K1 even knows who Benny On is. That's how great K1 is. Although I identify more with Rodman. Oh, so we're talking about who we identify as. So you change your hair, K1, a lot? Color of your hair a lot? I don't know. I wanted to go a different direction with the coaching talk too. Um, and I wanted to bring up, and it's something I put on Twitter yesterday, and I got crushed for it. And I don't care. If I get crushed, I get crushed. It don't bother me one way or another. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, share button, subscribe button, follow button. I greatly appreciate it. Not sure how many likes we have on this video yet, but I'm guaranteeing it's not enough likes, so please hit that like button. Is the Wink Martindale situation. And for some reason, I wrote down Mark Winkendale instead of Wink Martindale here. I don't know. I'm confused on this guy's name. And I brought up his coaching credentials, and it's Don Martindale. So I guess his name is Dan, or Don. He just likes to go by Wink. Wink would be a perfect coordinator. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually want Wink Martindale. Because Wink doesn't want to be called Don, just like Darius don't want to be called Darius. And the other Darius don't want to be called Darius. So Wink Martindale actually might fit here. But anyway, a lot of people were talking yesterday about Wink Martindale on social media and why he should be the defensive coordinator of the Eagles next year. Because he was let go from the Giants. Why do we want Wink Martindale so bad? What was the Giants' record this year? Let me tell you something. It wasn't good. I know the Giants beat the Eagles and just tore us to pieces in Week 18. Blitzed the hell out of us. Why do we want Wink Martindale here? Just because he blitzes a lot? Let me give you some numbers here. This year, Wink Martindale's defense was the 27th ranked defense overall. Last year, 25th ranked overall. The year before that, 25th overall. Yes, he had 3 years in Baltimore where he was first, fourth, and 7th ranked defense. So he's been a defensive coordinator for 7 seasons in the NFL. Okay. 3 of them have been top 7 defenses. The other 4 have been bottom 20, have been outside the top 25. So 4 out of 7 years, he's been one of the worst defensive coordinators in football. But 3 years, and the last one being 4 years ago, is all you're basing it off of? Also, he had elite talent on those Ravens defenses. Eagles defense is void of talent, especially in the secondary. So I need to get people's opinions. What is the fascination with a defensive coordinator that got fired from a bad team for being a bad defensive coordinator, not once, not twice, but 3 years in a row? Why do we want him? To me, Wink Martindale makes zero, zilch, zippo sense as a defense coordinator. The only reason why people want him is because he blitzes a lot. But when you blitz a lot and you have a terrible secondary like the Eagles have, if the blitz doesn't get home, guess what? Your secondary is going to get exposed even more. I know we don't want the Fangio scheme anymore, but maybe Wink Martindale is not the answer either. I mean, imagine being so rich that your bank account statement being the last thing in the world you're worried about. Mister, I wish. I really wish. I always say, I just said it a few minutes ago, I'll say it again. Anybody that says money does not buy happiness was never broke, never lived paycheck to paycheck. Money does not buy happiness, but it sure does make being happy and doing the things that make you happy so much easier. On that note, hit the super chats if you want to make me happy. Make me a billionaire, guys. If everybody watching donated a few bucks, I'd be a little happier. Kelsey speaks very highly of Winkendale. Wink. I keep calling him Winkendale. I don't even know why. And no one's picking up on the fact that I keep calling him Winkendale. I'm very disappointed in K1 missing me calling him Winkendale. Kotite and Sirianni are similar. Deer in the headlight coaching. I don't know about that. I got to give Sirianni some credit. He did get us to the Super Bowl. Kotite was just Kotite. Kotite is so funny. I remember there used to be a show, the Great Sports Debate back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. It was, all the Inquirer writers getting together, the young Angelos and Morganis getting together talking. And, obviously I was young in that time frame. But they used to do a show on NBC Sports Philly at like 2 a.m. called the Sports Scrabble, where they replay old Philadelphia sports things. And they used to occasionally play some of the old great sports debates. And I remember watching one like a couple years ago where they were all sitting around talking about after Buddy Ryan was fired that Rich Kotite should or shouldn't be the next head coach. And so I forget which one. Some of them on the panel were like, yes, he's the guy. And I don't know if it was Eskin or Catality or one of them like, Kotite is a bum. He's going to be terrible. He's going to set this franchise back. I was watching. I was like, hindsight, man. I love it. I love it. What we are doing on the linebacker position, we need to go young and draft some. Well, we know Howie doesn't draft linebackers, especially in the first or second round. But yeah, we got to do something. Got to do something. But Howie's got to learn, and Howie's got to realize that he's got to put some value in linebacker now, right? Just look at TJ Edwards, how he did this year. Look at Alex Singleton, set the Broncos record for most tackles in a season. Some of the guys that we've let go. Wink plus Big Dom equals Eagles Mafia. Wink Blitz. He's from the Ryan tree, baby. You cut the gut, and Kelly Green shoots out like the Predator. I don't know. We're skipping the reset. We're not resetting anymore. We're not. Oh, thank you very much for subbing. Greatly appreciate it. I'm on Twitter now, but we're streaming on Twitter now, but still we make our bones by getting subs, views, likes, super chats, dollars on the YouTube page. So greatly appreciate it. We do this Philly halftime every morning at 8 a.m., 5 days a week, 90 minutes a day. So I appreciate that. He's known for trickery and being unpredictable, I believe, but hasn't been with the greatest of teams. But the thing is, this is not the Ravens 2018 defense he would be inheriting. This is a defense that's ranked in the bottom 3 or 4 the Eagles have. So why is Wink Martindale the answer? Because he's bad with a bad defense in New York. Well, he would just be bad here too. If money doesn't buy happiness, then you're shopping at the wrong places. Absolutely love it. That might be one of the best comments from Marshawn ever, without a doubt. Because money does make things a ton easier and a ton better. I do not want Martindale. Thank you, halftime. Thank you. I'm not. If you follow me on Twitter at Beard of Knowledge, go back to my tweet yesterday about Wink, and the amount of people that told me I knew nothing about football because I didn't want Wink Martindale here. Just go look at that tweet. It's ridiculous. People just want him because he's an aggressive, blitz-happy guy. Again, doesn't mean anything if you can't wrap up. If you have no secondary, if you have no linebackers. Back then, it was just glorious mustache Phil. I've never had just a mustache. Should I go just a mustache? My wife would be so pissed if I shaved my beard but left the mustache. It's either all shave or the beard. No, we didn't forget the reset. I told you, you guys abused the reset privileges. We're not reset. Yes, that's right. Welcome to the core 12 for Philly halftime. Rich, coat tight, hurt the Eagles so bad. I like how you said coat tight, hurt the Eagles so bad. I don't know if that was done purposely or autocorrect, but I love it. Eagles so bad. That's one of the reasons why Reggie White left. Probably it wasn't just because God told him to. It was because of Rich Cote for sure. Um, ruined Randall Cunningham's career as well. Do you remember? Was it that '94 season when Cote was on the sidelines, jacket inside out, sulking on the sidelines? I think he was benched for like Bubby Brister or something like that year. The next year we bring in Rodney MVP, who stole the job from Randall. Cost us. I got you. Yeah, I get through the spell checks. Me and Liam have decided going forward the Philly Sports Network website. We'll have a UFL Eagles tracker. Yeah, I see. $500 super chat. Yeah, I wish. See, money. People don't understand. Money does buy happiness. 500. Yeah, no. Again, if only people realized, Derek, that you weren't really giving me 500 all the time. Phil, it's good to see you again. What's up, my man? Give me Frank Reich as OC and Jordan Mayo as defensive coordinator. I don't want Wink under any circumstances. I wasn't for Frank Reich in the middle of the season being brought in as a consultant, but give me Frank Reich in the offseason. I'm fine with that. Jordan Mayo, I did read right before the show when I was reading about the breaking news of Bill Belichick being fired, is one of the lead candidates to take over in New England as head coach. If he doesn't, sure. But isn't he already like, wouldn't that be like just a parallel job for him coming here? So I don't know. But I'd be okay with Jordan Mayo. I want a young linebacker coach. Like you look at some of the good coaches out there, good linebackers seem to be making good coaches. You look at Ryans in Houston and what he did in San Francisco. I want him as our defense coordinator before he went to San Francisco as defense coordinator. So I'd be okay with Jordan Mayo for sure. Will Kelsey ride off into the sunset? We've discussed that this week. I mean, my post blew up. That's, one of the things that got me in Philly Magazine this week, talking about, can you imagine? Last week was the last regular season game of Jason Kelsey's career, maybe. And that's how they went out. This might be his last game this week if they lose. Could you imagine going out that way? Will Kelsey want to put his body through it one more year like that? I don't know. Dan Quinn leaving Dallas for the Seahawks job is a blessing. But Al Harris has been really good for Dallas that he could step in for that DC role. That's a big one right there. If I'm Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, Al Harris is a rising name. You've got to overpay. There's a couple rising names in the positional ranks on defense that are going to be head defensive coordinators, and Al Harris is one of those names. Just like you had to outbid San Francisco for Ryans a few years ago, and they didn't. They should go out and go bring them home. I'm coming home. Go outbid Dallas or whoever for Al Harris's services, and have him come in and be our defensive coordinator. Young guy, different ideas, values the secondary a little bit, might help develop our young secondary. You got Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, Isaiah Rodgers, Zach McPherson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown. Maybe Al Harris is the perfect candidate for defense coordinator here in Philly. That was $1 million quote. Ted DiBiase, be proud. Ted DiBiase. haven't done a $1 million man laugh in a while. It wasn't my best effort. Agreed. Surprise Bengals let their offense coordinator go. Their problem is keeping Joe on the damn field. Absolutely. They'd be in the playoffs, and I like their head coach too. Zach Taylor, whatever his name is, who kind of came out of nowhere. Yeah. Will Kelsey ride in the sunset of this season? I don't know. Just think about Jason Kelsey for a second. You almost retired last year after losing the Super Bowl because you wanted one more shot at it. This year, the season's ending in a disaster. Your body hurts. You're broken. You're beaten. Do you play one more year? I don't know. I think what the coaching staff looks like and what the front office does with the coaching staff might influence what Jason Kelsey does next year. Maybe. I don't like shopping. All I need is my man cave and a big screen TV. Wife's addicted to shopping. If I had more money than she could spend, then I'm happy. Yeah, I don't need a lot, but money does make it easy to just look. Hey, I do want like I would love if I had more money, a TV in my office here. I actually talked about on Twitter last night about doing some live streams. I would love a TV here in my office so I can live stream during a game and chat with you guys during a game. But I don't want to do it out there, and I can't watch on my little side laptop. It's not the same. These linebackers in New England, Vrabel to New England. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, what they do. Ben Johnson will be a head coach at one of those openings. He's been great with the Lions. I agree. Out of all the offensive coordinators, Ben Johnson is the first or most likely to definitely be 100% a head coach next year, for sure. Cap management is key in football as in life. That's right. That's right. I need Howie Roseman to be my cap manager here in this house, for sure. There's another job opening, two more job openings. The Steelers are probably not moving on from Tomlin now, but I thought they would consider it with Carroll and Belichick being gone. But do the Bills, if they lose this weekend or get embarrassed this weekend, do they move on from Sean McDermott? We've talked about that. There's a ninth opening that could happen there. Belichick got fired. They didn't part ways. He didn't get fired. They agreed to move in a different. I think they presented it to the media in a very amicable way, for sure. But we know that's not the case. Chiefs historic cold, Kelsey last stand, Mahomes comeback, Dolphins injuries. A lot of narrative. We're going to dive into all the playoff games tomorrow because the Eagles game we don't have to dive into until Monday. Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit about all the other NFL playoff games, and what we'll do is we'll compare where those teams that are playing on Sunday and Saturday are compared to the Eagles. We need coaches who can not only scheme, play call, but develop. Absolutely. I think we've lacked in development in a few positions over the last few years. We had Denard Wilson. He was our exactly. You got to get those rising stars before somebody else does. Now Denard Wilson's still not a defensive coordinator, but you think if Howie called him and said, "Yo, you want to be our defense coordinator now?" He'd want to come back after how that unfolded. He probably would say no. You went outside and brought in Desai instead of promoting me. Forget that. That's why Kelsey made the video on Amazon Prime with his family. He's saying goodbye. I still have yet to watch that. Maybe that's what I'll do tonight after work. Maybe I'll watch the Kelsey doc tonight finally. Never got around to it. And if I do watch it tonight, don't know what my plans are tonight. Yeah. Yeah, see, there's so many better options than Mark Winkendale. So I don't get what the love for Mark Winkendale is and why we keep bringing his name into the equation. Just because he blitzes a lot. That's all. That's the only reason. If we didn't get blitzed to hell in Week 18 by the Giants, if we win Week 18 against the Giants, if we play anybody but the Giants Week 18, nobody in Philadelphia is talking Mark Winkendale. Al Harris, much better candidate. Jared Mayo, much better candidate. There's a lot of better candidates than Winkendale. Texans shocker as Flacco regressed. I saw a post yesterday about all the quarterbacks that are playing this weekend in the NFL, and they ranked them by career playoff wins. And obviously, Joe Flacco has the second most playoff wins out of quarterbacks playing this weekend. And I know, and I knew his name would be there, but it's 2024 now. And Joe Flacco's still out there playing in the playoffs, man. I give mad props to Joe Flacco still doing his thing. Doesn't want to retire yet. I love it. I got to give him, the University of Delaware product a little bit of credit. Ted DiBiase never won the damn WWE Championship. No, he did not. Two people from that era, I can't believe, never won a world title. Ted DiBiase and Hot Rod, Reality Check, Roddy Piper. Never were champs. It always bothered me. Especially a guy like Ted DiBiase. He was such a natural heel. His character, if it was now, would be so good. I do not think Brian Johnson knows how to correct when the Eagles are being blitzed. He has to change his scheme. Yeah, the blitzing pickup is a major issue for sure. Hardball will be the head coach of the Chargers. Hardball. I think we have a spell check issue there. Spell check. Harbaugh. Yeah, Harbaugh's not going anywhere. It doesn't. Everybody's linking him to the Raiders. I don't know why Harbaugh would go to the Raiders. The Chargers will probably be his first choice, in my opinion. I agree. Bring back Sean McDermott. Yeah, I'd take him as my DC if he gets fired, for sure. Absolutely. What do you think? Do the Packers have any chance against the Cowboys? Absolutely. Um, Not likely, but absolutely. Everybody has a chance. And the NFL, we'll get into it more tomorrow. But obviously, Dak's playoff record is not good. Um, so we've seen Dak collapse in the playoffs before. Mike McCarthy is an overrated coach, in my opinion. There's another head coaching. If the Packers beat the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy will be fired on Monday. Guarantee to you. And that's where Dan Quinn will go. He'll just get the job in Dallas. We love Sean, the owner, even more. He had one made for himself, obviously the $1 million belt. That's not the world champion. That was the boss thing. I still remember watching the documentary on him, and when Vince McMahon gave the $1 Million Man his new gimmick there is the $1 Million Man, and he would give him like flash money. He would make him walk into restaurants, just throw money at all the servers, and say, "Buy everybody dinner." And it was so fun to watch, man. That documentary on the $1 Million Man. Very, very underrated wrestling personality, wrestler of the golden era of wrestling. Definitely does not get enough credit for living the gimmick. Everybody talks about Ric Flair living his gimmick. Well, Ted DiBiase lived that gimmick, and he was very underrated. It's true, Battlehawks. Saw the injury list for the Dolphins, and even though the Chiefs aren't the same, Kelsey Doc is great. Everybody has said it. Problem is, like, my wife doesn't like to watch a lot of sports stuff, but she said I can't watch it unless she's there because she loves Jason Kelsey. And who doesn't? So I got to make sure I schedule the watching of it, and I just haven't been. My wife and I haven't gotten our schedule on the same page. Maybe if we don't go out tonight, maybe we will watch it tonight. Cowboys inch by Packers, probably. But would you really want Denard back after another first-time coordinator? We won with Schwartz, and he was really good here, despite what people said. Absolutely. We won with Jonathan Gannon, who was a first-time coordinator too, though. So I don't know. Do you go with the experienced guy, or do you go with the young up-and-comer? It's an argument for both that could be had. Philly fans love the blitz. Not that complicated. I know. But I'm not saying I'm just saying it's not the right answer. Todd Bowles as defensive coordinator if Tampa comes to their senses and fires him. It's another name. I would have no problem with Todd Bowles. All these names, all better options than Wink Martindale. Saw the Dolphins. Yeah, we already saw that. Winks also ain't above cussing out upper management. I think that's what won him. Yeah, I don't want that. I want a guy that's going to coach our defense to be elite. Roddy Piper, Dusty Rhodes, never won as well. Absolutely. I was never a huge Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream fan. I know he was great for the young, current crop of wrestlers and what he did in developing wrestlers. But to me, Dusty Rhodes never, I don't know. Something about him. He just never connected with young little Phil. When I'd watch Saturday night, WWE Saturday Night Main Event or whatever it was. That's inspired spell check. That's right. I feel like Brian Johnson is still the OC and will interview for head coaching job because every time you watch the Eagles, you always see a player open, but Jalen never sees him. Interesting. Everyone is 0-0, but how can we fix the turnover issues? Maurice, my man, get that out. I hate that so many players and coaches are saying that. We're 0-0. Just like they just think we're going to flip that switch and magically be this dominating team. It's not basketball, man. You can't just flip a switch. Football's a different sport, man. I don't buy that narrative that we're 0-0 and everybody is. Could we get hot? Sure. But I just don't buy it. I don't. Hot Rod, Jake, Rick Rude, Jake the Snake, Paul Orndorff, the golden era of heels. There was a golden era of heels right there, my man. For sure. Preach. Money, money, money. Money. All right. I mean, technically we lost with Gannon's defense, but I'm not trying to open up that. We lost the Super Bowl, but we made the way people talk about Jonathan Gannon, you would have thought our defense would have led us to a 3-14 record last year. We made the freaking Super Bowl with Jonathan Gannon's defense. I might be the only person left in Philly that doesn't have complete and utter hate for Jonathan Gannon. Kelsey is the closest thing to a prime 80s Kurt Russell being a real-life Eagle. Ray Lewis is our new defensive coordinator. He's going to get us back on track. Book it. No. I never even heard a single rumor of Ray Lewis ever coaching. What did Jake the Snake bring as a gift for Elizabeth and Macho Man? Snake. Dusty developed Roman Reigns, and the story goes he loved him more than. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Dusty Rhodes' sister was actually my school teacher, and she looked just like him. That's hilarious. Did anybody see a picture of what? And this is not. I'm not trying to get into look shaming or anything like that. What Brock Lesnar's daughter? She's like setting records in college and track and field. I think she's a shot putter or whatever. She looks like literally Brock Lesnar. Like, no doubt about it. It's his son. It's his daughter. She is literally the spitting image of him. 70 plus sacks was always going to be a tough act to follow. Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. But with that being said, the comments dried up there for a second. So I had to slow down and pause, let some comments catch up here. Dusty missed the mark. He would have been a better with a cooking show, just cutting random promos in between meals. Yeah, I agree. Jonathan Gannon has that bend but don't break defense zone. Our corners need to play more man press. That's what Patricia knows. Problem is, we don't have the talent now. We just don't. And the bend don't break defense works to an extent. It got us to a Super Bowl. Hey, Jim Schwartz ran a bend don't break defense. And now he's beloved. So I don't know. What's up with Glenn Rivers? Glenn Rivers, man, can't keep his mouth shut. What's wrong with Glenn Rivers, man? Why can't he keep his mouth shut? I have no idea. Let the record show the gift joke was a snake. Yeah, I know. Everybody knows. Yo, Brock daughter, her mom. I mean, all the, yeah, man. Well, I don't know. Is Brock's daughter that's setting records? Is that the kid he had with Sable? So I know he's married to Sable, and I know he's got a couple kids. I don't know if they're all Sable's kids or not. But man, can you imagine? You got Sable and Lesnar, and the genes you get are Brock Lesnar's. You didn't get Sable's looks, man. Opening up 3 hours to the Sony Open, absolutely, my man. I can't wait. I'm ready for golf season, man. I love watching golf, man. Fairway to Heaven, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Myself, Jason Sullivan. For those that don't know, we talk all things golf for an hour every single week. Jim Schwartz had the wide 9, though it was different. He also had the sticks defense, playing 17 yards off the line of scrimmage. We all want Jim Schwartz back. We do. That's just a testament of where this defense has become. And honestly, no lie, I would take Jonathan Gannon back right now over Matt Patricia and Sean Desai. I would. Jim Schwartz also said, we'll get you the ball back in the Super Bowl, and his defense came through. His defense came through in the Super Bowl. Jonathan Gannon's defense did not come through in the Super Bowl. The only difference between the two, one won a Super Bowl, one did not. One did give up 500 yards in the Super Bowl, though, even though they won. Don't forget that. Puppies! I know, exactly. I tried to think of how the king would say it, but yeah. Why are you going to the Sony store? The what? I don't know what you're talking about with the Sony store. Why does it open so late? I don't know what that's talking about. Wide 9 and his defense ranked number 1 in the run our Super Bowl year. Why was the wide 9 so good the Super Bowl year? But the years, the way back in the day when Jason Babin or whatever his name was our defensive end. Forget who was our defense coordinator then. Was that during the Juan Castillo defense coordinator era? I don't remember. That wide 9 was terrible. You got to have certain type of players on your defense to run a wide 9. That's the thing. To run any style of defense, you got to have the personnel to fit it, or you got to adjust what you want to run. Problem is this year, the Eagles have square personnel, but are trying to run a round defense, and that's a problem. Jim's defense was carved up by the GOAT in the Super Bowl. It was. We made one play when it mattered most. Brandon Graham, Dark Barnett, the biggest play in Eagles defense history. I agree with Glenn talking about Morey running his mouth. If I was a GM in the NBA, I'd have a Daryl Morey costume made, fleece strap. Yeah, look, it's crazy because Glenn Rivers, Doc, I can't stand the guy. One of my least favorite coaches in Philly history. but he's not wrong. Daryl Morey is not an elite executive like people paint him. He's just not. Jokes going over Phil's head as good as his pronunciation issues. It's not easy for me to catch every joke. I'm reading through. Today's a light day, 177 comments so far. It's easy for me to miss things, just so you know. It is. It's hard to go through all these comments and pick up on every little bit of sarcasm and joke. Juan Castillo and our linebackers were Casey Matthews, Brian Roll. Our safeties were Nate Allen and Kirk Coleman. Those names, man. Casey Matthews was terrible. I don't even remember the name Brian Roll. Honestly, I'm just going to say it. I don't even remember the name. He could walk in my office right now and I wouldn't know who he is. I agree with your point, Phil. Figured out our defensive coordinator is a discussion, but what talent are we bringing in? Exactly. Wink Martindale, you're not going to get the number 1 ranked defense Wink Martindale ran with Baltimore here next year because we're a bad defense. Big piece of the puzzle right there. Castillo was an offensive-minded coach. It was a bad fit. You can't make an offensive coach become a defensive. Yeah. Juan Castillo was something. The fabulous Mullah. Yeah. Still remember her getting power bombed through a table by Bubba Ray Dudley. Sony Open. Why open so late? Not great joke. I missed that. Sorry. When I just saw the word Sony Open K1 and got so excited about golf that I forgot about reading the rest of the comment and the joke. Yeah, went over my head. Glenn said Morey talks too much, but this is also the same guy who said we need another guard here, plain and simple. And Glenn is the same guy that thought Tyrese Maxey should be a bench player. Let that settle into your thoughts for a second. Same guy. Just so you know. Glenn Rivers absolutely sucks, and he lied about Tyrese telling him he wanted to come off the bench. Yeah. Tyrese Maxey spoke a couple days ago about that. And about how upset he was that he had to come off the bench. I know it sounds cheesy like this. He had to call his mama because he wasn't happy about coming off the bench. So, yeah, I don't know. Don't know there. But anyway, we're going to start the wrap-up process here a minute or two early here. I got some things I got to take care of today. Guys, trending in the AM. Right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., talking all things trending. Tomorrow, maybe we'll recap the Kelsey situation, the Kelsey show if I get to watching it tonight. We'll definitely talk all the playoff games tomorrow, who wins and why. I'm sure there'll be more news about all these coaching candidates and coaching job openings and whatnot. We're going to continue to talk all things Eagles. We're going to talk all things Sixers. Glenn is also the same guy who told Maxey to be more like Rondo. Yeah. Mike McDonald here could only help us so much on defense. Glenn Rivers doesn't call Sixers games because he knows he did call Sixers game a few weeks ago, and I don't remember. Pat Riley is the best NBA executive. If that's considered elite, then no, Morey is not elite. Yeah, exactly. Guys, we're going to wrap it up right there. Trending in the AM, right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. And as Duck has been saying lately, instead of go Birds, it's go Birds.